Yes, people. Yes, people. We are live. This is another In Motion football stream. My name is Alam, and I'm here today to talk about the AFC West, people. A pretty interesting division, a division that was supposed to be really stacked last year. It wasn't stacked last year at all, and always is entertaining with the teams that are in there. We're going to get right into it, but before that, I have to do the boring stuff that I always have to do at the beginning. So, a brief reminder that as a watcher of content on YouTube, you have the ability to help channels get bigger. So, if you're watching this and you enjoy what's going on, make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment. If you're watching live, get active in the chat. Whether you're watching this live or on replay, you have an opportunity to help the channel out the same. So, if you enjoy what you watch today, people, make sure you stay engaged with the content so that the channel gets bigger and I can do it more and more often. So, with that out of the way, we're going to get right to it. I'm going to share my screen and pull up the Denver Broncos depth chart. That is the team we are starting off with today. I'll zoom into it a little bit more, get you guys a bit of a better view. I can do better. I can do better. All right, here we are. So, people, the Denver Broncos, obviously an interesting organization because they backed up the Brinks trucks for Russell Wilson. They traded a huge trade haul for Russell Wilson. They saw that go terribly. They had an ownership change and then subsequently an organizational change as a whole. So a whole lot of turnover in the last 300 and what, let's say, just say 420 days, right? A little over a year from this point last year. A lot has happened. So where that leaves us is obviously this is an organization that's trying to find a direction going forward. Sean Payton's a big part of that. We're going to look at the offense and see what might be here, um, what might be here to go to move forward with. Obviously, the starting point is Russell Wilson. Can we get good out of Russell Wilson? Can he look like he's forget being worth his contract, but even just worth putting on the football field for the next couple years? I don't think at all that Sean Payton is going to look at Russell Wilson and say, you know what, I want him from the life of, for the life of his contract. I think regardless of what he does, like all the different timelines of Russell Wilson going forward, they all involve him getting shipped out as soon as his contract makes that possible. So um, this year, I don't think is about salvaging Russell Wilson for the Broncos. It's about salvaging him so that he can get moved off ASAP. So how are they going to do that? When you look at this team, you see a lot that was here last year, aside from the offensive line. So we're going to leave the offensive line at the end and just talk about everything else first. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Mims, and Brandon Johnson at receiver. So Brandon Johnson is an undrafted free agent from last year. Can't say I know a whole lot about him, but I do know a lot about the other guys. Cortland Sutton, somebody who I think early in his career was rated pretty highly, and that was fair. But I don't think I've seen enough from him in the NFL to warrant the reputation that he might have as somebody who you can build an offense around. So I don't know exactly what you're going to get from him. I think he's had some injuries that are a little bit unsettling. I don't know if he's the receiver that had the ACL. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't look at Cortland Sutton as like a blue chip wide receiver the way, maybe in year one, that's how he was looked at. Jerry Jeudy, who I think is awesome. I think he's a phenomenal player, but he does have injury issues. He had a hamstring issue in training camp that he was carted off the field for. A player was carted off for a hamstring issue. I think hamstrings are something that he's had before in his career. So that's not a good thing to have as a recurring injury. And yeah, Jerry Jeudy is somebody who I'd love to see on a football field healthy, but I don't know if we're going to get that. So, with their receiving core between Sutton and Jeudy, I think it looks good on paper, but I don't know how much productivity you're going to get on the football field. As for Marvin Mims, I like him. I like him as a weapon, but I don't like him as like a game-changing player. I don't think he's going to step in and be somebody that changes their offense. I think he's going to be a very valuable part of their future. I think the fact that Sean Payton invested a second in him indicates that he does want him to be a part of the future. But I think you look at Marvin Mims as your number two of the future. So it's a bit of a mishmash of a wide receiving core. It's hard to tell exactly what you're going to get from who, but I do think that they have a respectable wide receiving core. The problem is that Will Russell Wilson allow that wide receiving core to achieve like what they're capable of? I think that might not be the case, and that's a problem that the Denver Broncos offense is going to have to deal with. Their running back room features a banged up Javonte Williams. Actually, before I get to that, their tight ends, right? They have Greg Dulcich from last year, third round pick. He looks solid as a tight end. I don't think he's going to be a superstar or anything, but he's steady. Um, Sean Payton brought Adam Troutman with him from New Orleans. Chris Manhertz, I think, is like a blocking tight end, special teams kind of guy. And then an undrafted free agent has that fourth spot. Nothing spectacular at the tight end position. So, all the passing targets as a whole, I think for the most part, the production you're going to get is not going to be spectacular, but it could be steady. And then you look at the running back room, you got an undrafted free agent as the third guy, Jaleel McLaughlin. But the first two guys, I don't think are particularly in a good spot to expect, are in a good spot for this offense to expect big things. Like Javonte Williams, I think, was a very good prospect coming out of college, but Javonte Williams had a really bad knee injury, multi ligament tears. That's not something that that's not a kind of injury you want to bank on that player for early in their recovery. And then Samaje Perine, who I think is, somebody who got on the field in Cincinnati for his ability to pass block, not necessarily to play make. Like, he had some steady games here and there. But if I look at the weapons around Russell Wilson, wide receiver position aside, honestly, it feels pretty mediocre for this upcoming year. Maybe in the next year, I'll look at Javonte with a little bit more expectation, but I don't expect a whole lot from these weapons. Um, Judy is the one that I feel good about putting expectations on to play very, very well at a high level, but he's not somebody who I expect to stay healthy. So if Russell Wilson is going to play great, I think he would need in this stage of his career great weapons, and I don't think he has that. There's a chance if things go wrong that he could have bad weapons this year. You look at the offensive line, and I think that's a high leverage place for this offense, because if they can be elite, that would help Denver a lot. But like the swing for how bad it would be if they're bad, I think is huge with this team. So you look at the offensive line. They have Garrett Bowles, who is, I think, in the sixth year of his career, but he's like 30 now, right? His name is in all caps, so that means he's 30. Don't know exactly what to make of him. I've heard some like mixed opinions on him, but I think he's generally like a good left tackle to have. Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey are the two additions they made. I like the Ben Powers move. I don't know about Mike McGlinchey, to be honest. I'm weary of San Francisco offensive linemen because I feel like they make the most out of guys. I think they get the absolute most out of players they play in that scheme. I don't know like how good Mike McGlinchey actually is. So that's one to watch there. They gave him a big contract. We'll see if he lives up to it. And then Lloyd Cushenberry, third round pick from 2020. Quinn Miners, a third round pick from 2021. Now, I think that those players have better reputations than the offensive line as a whole has produced in Denver. But ultimately, they were there. Like, they've been there these past few years where Denver's offensive line hasn't really been something to write home about. So, obviously the same goes with Garrett Bowles. So we're going to learn, right? Me, as somebody who doesn't watch the Broncos with like a heightened level of closeness the way I would for some other teams, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have a bad understanding of these players. Maybe the other offensive linemen that they played next to were the reason that they played poorly. Or like maybe they played well, the other ones played poorly, and that was the problem with the offensive line. But I think there's a chance that maybe they're just like okay players. And then I think there's a chance McGlinchey's also just okay. And I think Ben Powers, I think he's pretty good. But I think he's the only one that I feel very comfortable, again, putting that high level of expectation on. I don't think the Broncos offensive line is going to be bad. I just think it might not have the high ceiling that some people think it might. It probably has a high floor, low ceiling kind of a line, kind of an offensive line. So with that being said, like looking at the offense as a whole, I think it's setting up to just be mediocre. I don't think it's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be good. I think it's just going to be very mediocre. And I think if you give a mediocre surroundings to Russell Wilson with Sean Payton as the coach, Sean Payton has a very, very big task at hand to get like high level of production out of this unit. And we're going to learn about Sean Payton because I remember things being very good in New Orleans when he had Drew Brees, a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, a quarterback that is well suited to his era of football in terms of playing style. But after Drew Brees, I don't think any of his quarterback projects in New Orleans worked. I don't think any of the offenses they put on a football field were particularly good. And we're going to see if Sean Payton maybe struggles without Drew Brees. Who knows? We've seen this in a couple of situations in the NFL where marriages stop for one reason or another, and we find out one half of the marriage maybe was getting carried by the other half a little bit. So we're going to learn about Sean Payton this year, people. But yeah, I don't know. I don't expect a lot from this offense. I just don't. I think they'll be, again, my prediction is they're going to be mediocre. That's obviously going to be substandard because of the big overhaul and the big investment that the ownership made this past offseason. So I think you're going to see a lot of change at the end of this year, but this year is going to be the mediocre year that triggers that change. Pivoting to the defense is interesting. So this defense was very good last year, and I think there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. Um, the big one being, the two monsters in the secondary, Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons. I think they're really, really good. I think Pat Surtain is elite. He's in line to be the best corner in football at some point. I think Justin Simmons has been in and around the area of the best safety in football at times. I'm not overly familiar with some of the other pieces here. As you can see, there's a fifth round pick from 2021 in Caden Stearns. There's a fourth round pick from 2022, and then an undrafted free agent from 2020. Not guys I'm overly familiar with, but ultimately, I think these guys would have been around for last year. Kareem Jackson is a depth guy now, apparently. They got a third round pick, Riley Moss, as a depth guy. So I think this secondary they should be strong like they were last year. I actually forget who the Broncos coach is offhand. Let me look this up real quick. The Broncos defensive coordinator. Oh, they got Vance Joseph. Oh yeah, they'll be good. They'll be good. They got a guy. So that's the secondary, right? Then you look at the edge rushers. Wait a second. What's going on? Where's Baron Browning? What happened to Baron Browning? Is he hurt? Oh, he's on the PUP list. That sucks. People, Baron Browning is awesome. I forget which game it was, but I watched the primetime Broncos game last year. And what I saw from Baron Browning, he when I tell you that he flashed, like just watching the game, you saw some elite traits from him. So I thought he was a spectacular player. When they traded Bradley Chubb, I thought that made sense. And I now look at it like they have Randy Gregory, Frank Clark. That's a steady duo. They're not gonna like miss Baron Browning while he's hurt, but then to be able to add Baron Browning to the mix sets them up pretty nicely. So you got a good secondary, a good pass rush. I think you probably have just like serviceable linebackers, but then they added Zach Allen to the front to replace, I think, Draymond Jones was the guy they lost. But yeah, like they have a lot of their defense from last year. They have a good defensive coordinator. They have um, obviously some added pieces in Frank Clark and Zach Allen. So yeah, they're in a good spot defensively. But like I said, I think they're going to be very mediocre offensively. Mediocre is maybe even looking at it positively. So with that, we have Murtaza joining the stream again. Murtaza, what are you saying, bro?
What's up, bro? How you doing?
All good, all good. Just got through the Broncos, so I'll let you talk about the offense, and then you may as well just run through the offense and the defense. I got through my opinions on the whole team.
Gotcha. Yeah. The Broncos are interesting because I think their weapons are okay. Not a big believer in their offensive line, but they've invested a lot into it.
Yep.
I think the biggest issue lies in the quarterback position, and last year it was also the offensive coordinator position.
Yep.
So let's see how they can do with Sean Payton. I think there's going to definitely be some improvement there, but I'm still not a big believer in this offense with Russell Wilson at this stage in his career. I think He's he's not as like quick in his reactions. His accuracy is not there,
Yeah,
and in the NFL, you can't really win without a quarterback. Like there hasn't been a mediocre quarterback or a mediocre quarterback performance to win a Super Bowl. So judging by that, especially in this division, they're not going to be able to do anything.
big facts. Yeah, yeah. So
And
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead. No, you can go.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna move on to the defense. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, just like to touch on what you said about the offense, right? Talking about the offensive line. My thing is like so we talk a lot about what they invested in the offensive line. I think the guard they got from Baltimore, Ben Powers, I think he'll be really good. The right tackle they got from San Fran, Mike McGlinchey. I'll be real, I don't know about him. I think his reputation is better than actually how he plays. And like the thing about San Francisco is they get the absolute most out of offensive linemen.
Yep.
If you look at their offensive line from year to year, you tend not to actually recognize the names for what they did before or after San Francisco. Like you see a lot of guys that are there, they're good, and then like they'll be okay in other places, right? But like they never get the reputation in other places that they did in San Francisco. And I just like don't I don't know. I feel like I've seen McGlinchey have some bad moments. So I feel like he might be a bit of a reputation player. I don't know how much they're going to get out of him. And then like the rest of the offensive line, while I think like they're probably not bad, we're also here last year when like the line was bad. And like I obviously wasn't watching it with enough detail to know why, but there's a decent chance that maybe the guys that are coming back also just like they might not be that good. And my point isn't that they're bad. I just think like I won't be surprised if this offensive line is just average. Right. Like despite the fact that they invested, I think they might just be a line full of like passable guys. So that's my thing. Like I don't really think there's a strength on this roster. Like the only players that I'm confident in next year, and I'm talking about ability right now, are like Ben Powers and Jerry Judy. I think I have question marks about the entire offense outside of them, and then with Jerry Judy, I have the health question marks. So, um, like I said, I think there's enough talent here for there to be like a high floor. I don't think they'll be trash, but I think there's a low ceiling here, bro. I think they're going to be mediocre as hell. But yeah, we can get to the defense.
100%. I'll echo the same thoughts there. Like, uh, there's a lot of interest in McGlinchey because
Yeah,
although he is a very, I think, average right tackle, there
yeah,
isn't many average right tackles in the NFL. Like that's also like a very needy
that's
position. So
true. That's true. That's a good
that's why
point.
his market was very like high in a sense. Like even us, like we made it like a huge offer for him, but he chose the Broncos. So yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah,
no, that makes sense.
going on to their defense, I think they have a lot of good pieces on this team, like Justin Simmons, Pat Sertain. Like they have some really good pieces on here, and I think their defense was even good last year. Like under one thing you can say about a Vic Fangio team is even though he was a head coach and it wasn't great like the year before and shit, like their defense was still great, and I think it's still like carrying on from there. And I think Pat Surtain is one of the best corners in the league, like already.
Yep,
Like
yep,
even though he's had a couple years in the league, he's like amazing. Justin Simmons, arguably the best free safety in the league. They have
yeah,
some good pieces in Gregory Clark, but yeah, I don't. I it's doesn't matter how good your defense is or can be, whatever. If your offense is not good and can't sustain possessions and long drives, it
it's
won't
not
matter.
the it's not the '80s.
It's not, and like we've seen with like what with good defenses or even great defenses paired up with mediocre to okay offenses is done in the NFL in the recent years. Like so, yeah, it's just their defense is good, but it's like useless in a sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, a lot about just I believe in this defense a lot. I just don't believe in their ability to make up for the offense. But aside from like offense versus defense, or just a thought as a whole on the Broncos, I thought when Sean Payton said that stuff about Hackett being like one of the worst coaches or this team being one of the worst coach teams, I looked at that like there's no way Sean Payton is dumb enough to like violate coaching norms like that. Like there's no chance, right? I think that that was just him being like, you know what? let me get ahead of this. Like, like I think he looked at it like, yo, this team is not going to be it. Let me just step, like almost like, let me get on this grenade right now. Like, I'll take the bullets. I'll say something that kind of gets the heat off the players, that puts the heat on me. But yeah, I think that's a really bad sign for this team. I would never want to hear my coach say some shit like that. And like, yeah, I think like the conversations about it all became about like, wow, that's such a shitty thing to say, whatever, whatever. It became about Sean Payton, but really that should become about the players. The players are not in a good place for that to be happening.
Yep, 100%. And it's like pretty concerning, especially when it's coming from a guy like Sean Payton, because
Yep.
he's not just an average Joe. He's one of the best head coaches NFL history. Like, led teams to Super Bowls, like consistent success. So it's not just like his word like holds more weight. So
Yep.
it definitely shows that. And bro, you could see last year, like you didn't even need to hear Sean Payton say that to see how bad the
Yeah.
Broncos were. Like
Yeah.
they were just like doing some crazy dumb shit in the regular season last year, and it showed, especially in that Seahawks game. I remember like
100%.
week one, they took. I think they were gonna take a timeout to stop the clock, but they ran out 40 seconds in a 2 minute. I was
Yep.
like, wait, what are you doing? Like, if you're gonna take the timeout, take it right away. It was like it's just they were all over the place, and I 100% agree with him. Although
Yeah.
you're Aaron Rodgers so much, like
Oh yeah, 100%. So like that's just it with the Broncos. Not a team that I think is going to be a team talked about too much this year. I think there'll be a lot of change next year, and then we might see a team worth talking about more at that point. So we're going to wrap up on Denver, and we're going to move on to the Chargers. Chargers, a much more interesting team to talk about. Well, if you're gonna start with the offense, you have to start with the play caller. So the history of play callers is pretty interesting in the last little bit. So they went from in Justin Herbert's rookie year with Shane Steichen. Then when there was a coaching change, they brought in, I think it's Joe Lombardi or this Mike or Joe Lombardi. It's one of the Lombardis, but regardless of what his name is, all the Chargers fans say he's cheeks. So like they say basically his scheme was a lot about like receivers running routes in the first 5 yards, right? Just that his offense was conservative, and just there was a very, very big difference in the play calling from Steichen to him. And the difference in play calling was mainly about Herbert taking shots down the field, and that happened a lot more in his rookie year. Again, as a rookie, compared to then in his second and third year, the reins being brought in almost like you're now treating him like a rookie when he's not, right? So the big play calling change is that Kellen Moore is the guy now. Kellen Moore
yep,
has been in the Cowboys organization for a minute now, went right from playing to coaching, eventually got his hands on the play calling duties. And I think, to be honest, at no point at the Cowboys has he dealt with a quarterback like Herbert, because he's always had Dak. At no point has he had a receiving core like this, even though he's had CD Lamb and Amari Cooper, who are both very good. But like, and I think last year they had all three of them. They had Lamb, Cooper, Gallup. But even that, I don't think is like as well rounded as this one. And then like Cooper always got hurt, so I think he's got interesting pieces with this offense. Obviously, the offensive line, they're going to have to stay healthy. They had issues to start the year last year. They're going to have to stay healthy to compare to what Moore had at times with the Cowboys. But you look at the running back room, Eckler's good. Eckler can do a lot of the different things that he did in Dallas with his running backs. I don't actually like any of the Eckler backups, so I think they're very health dependent on the running back position. It's got to be Eckler. I don't really think there's an alternative there. And then like their backup quarterback is Easton Stick, so it's like they need their quarterback and their running back to stay healthy. But
yep,
all things considered, man, I like a lot about the offense. I think Kellen Moore will get Justin Herbert back to like the version of him that we saw. Then we thought, okay, like this guy has the ability to show up and turn in a performance that can outdo any other quarterback on his day. Like he has that potential, and I think you'll start to see more of it with Kellen Moore. As for the receivers, I think Keenan Allen isn't in his prime at this point. I don't think he's the best Keenan Allen, but he'll still be very good. I think Mike Williams is amazing. I just think he has injury issues. And then Quentin Johnston, I think, is in a very good situation for him. I think he
Yep.
was a player that I thought if he was depended on as a wide receiver one or even a two early in his career, that might have been bad for his career and he might have been a bust pretty early. But I think this is a place where he actually has an opportunity to grow into like whatever his potential is. And then at that point, like his career has a chance to live up to the first round pick a little bit more, like that grade a little bit more. And at the end of the day, he's with a quarterback that I think is going to put him in good positions. He's going to never see anything like double coverage or anything close to it in this offense. So he's going to have opportunities. If you have him as your wide receiver three, you're in good shape. You have a solid 1 and 2. You have a capable tight end in Everett. You have a good running game in Eckler. Obviously, Rashawn Slater is a very good left tackle. Zion Johnson, I'm not sure, but I don't think he was healthy last year. First round pick though, and then Corey Linsley, center from Green Bay. He's been there for a while.
Yep.
And then draft picks on the right side. I think they're good on paper. We're gonna have to see how it looks on the field, but I do think that Kellen Moore will get a lot out of this offense. One thing I will say though is that like as while the receivers are good, there's no receiver here that's like the receivers he had on Dallas. So it's like I know what Kellen Moore would do with an Amari Cooper, and I saw what he did with CeeDee Lamb last year, but I don't actually think that translates much to the receivers that they have. They don't really have I think the route running that Keenan Allen has is comparable to Amari Cooper's, but like Keenan Allen at this stage isn't like the athlete that Cooper would have been. And obviously with CD, like nobody has that type of shiftiness right now,
Yeah.
especially not Keenan Allen, right? So what he does with the receivers is going to have to be different. Like Dallas has never had a throw it to him, even though he's covered, because he'll just moss somebody receiver like Mike Williams. So I just think that like if there is a hitch, it might just be that Kellen Moore is working with receivers that are unique to anything he's done in the past. But I don't expect there to be any hitches in his usage of Eckler, any hitches in his usage of Herbert. I think the offensive line will probably hold their own, barring injuries. I look at this offense and I think they'll do pretty good things. Now, like the Chargers just have some weird Chargers shit going on. Sometimes things just don't work. But like aside from that, man, I don't see a whole lot of things being present that suggest that things will go wrong. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, just echoing most of the things that you're saying. I think going to their offensive line, they had a lot of injuries last year. Like early in the year, like throughout, Rashawn Slater was out for like 13 games. In the start, like they had the very stop-start like team, but they still like recouped it in the end, and were good. Um, when quarterback Justin Herbert, I think he's great. Um, Eckler, I'm not a big fan of Eckler. Like I don't believe in him. He gets the job done somehow. I just don't think he's that good personally.
Do you think the touchdowns kind of like it sway how people see him as a running back?
It's like it's just a fantasy hype for me. Like he just gets
Yeah.
a ton of fantasy points and people think he's a great running back, but I don't think he is. But yeah, that's just up for debate. But when it comes to their weapons, I think they're really set up nicely this year. Um, Williams and Allen have struggled for injuries the last couple years, so hopefully in their absence, Quentin Johnson can take some of the load, and while they're there, I think if when all three are healthy, you have Johnson on one side, Williams on one side, and Keenan Allen in the slot. I think that's a really really good wide receiver core. I
Yeah.
think you have Mike Williams to work in like the deep slash intermediate range. Quentin Johnson's just gonna stretch the field, and Keenan Allen's gonna work in the slot. And I think the biggest thing though for them is Kellen Moore. I think he was scapegoated last year in Dallas because to cover for Dak's deficiencies, like Dak
And
just couldn't
McCarthy's a clown.
winners. Like he just couldn't get it done against in the big game. So just to like take the heat off him. Like they fired Kellen Moore, which I think was unfair. And I think he's a pretty good offensive coordinator. I think we're gonna see the best of him in Los Angeles. So yeah, I'm really excited for this offense especially with the addition of Quentin Johnson. I hope they stay healthy so we can see a consistent team. But yeah, I am excited for this offense.
So did you hear the quote that McCarthy said about Kellen Moore? Kind of, it was like a bit of an indirect. Did you hear that quote?
No.
He basically said something about how, like, like last year with the play calling, like we were trying to score points instead of winning games, kind of suggesting that Kellen Moore abandoned the running game and was just trying to like just do numbers, and like almost suggesting that he was selfish and like, again, like trying to just get a lot of points, a lot of yards, move the ball, but like not thinking about how sometimes you can like slow it down, just trying to grind out long drives to win football games, right? Which I
Mm-hmm.
think is like pure bullshit, by the way. But my whole thing is like, let's say sure that he has that slant towards, maybe he abandons the run game sometimes and just likes to throw the football. I think that suits this team pretty well because, like, to your point about Eckler, I think he's a good running back, but he's not well rounded. Like, he's not
Yep.
the running back that you turn around and give it to him 25 times to put a team on ice. Like, that's not his purpose. Honestly, Eckler should be a running back you put in space as often as you can. So if he's a player that's getting screens, if he's in the flat, if he's getting draws, if he's doing kind of the shit that McCarthy was alleging Kellen Moore did last year, that suits him pretty well. Obviously, I think it suits Herbert to be throwing the ball a lot. It suits the receiving core if they stay healthy because they have the weapons to facilitate a high volume of passes. Like, I think what McCarthy said was bullshit, but if we're just even going to take that as the slant that he has as a play caller, it suits this offense better than it suits Dallas's offense for sure. Like, if a bad thing that happened to Dallas is Dak Prescott threw the football too much, that's probably a Dak Prescott problem. And then what we're going to see now that Herbert's the guy throwing the football a lot, that's actually not like inherently a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, like Dallas's running game last year is also not good because like Zeke's like he's done. They're relying heavily on Pollard, and I don't know. He didn't show up. I think in those big
Yeah.
games, but
Yeah.
that's not entirely down to him. He hasn't had like that was his like first time really, like
Yeah.
taking the reins, being the running back one. So yeah, it's just a bunch of crap, bro. I think
Yeah.
it all stemmed down from the top, like the fish heads from this like top down, right? Dak
Yeah.
ass, bro, and that trickled down to the whole team. Dalton Schultz was like not getting in bounds, like dropping, like it was just a whole mess in Dallas last year.
100%. And I think to say that Kellen Moore was scapegoated is accurate. And I think he's in a good spot to disprove some of the opinions that people probably have that are critical about him. I'm good to move to the defense, by the way.
Let's go.
You have anything else about the offense? All right, cool.
No.
Going to the defense. Hold on. Okay, cool. So the thing about the defense is they have a lot of older pieces. Like, well, the pieces I'm talking about are Khalil Mack and Eric Kendricks. But what I like about what they did this year is they got like insurance policies in the draft.
Yep.
Like, I like Deion Henley as an insurance policy for Eric Kendricks, and I like Tui Pelotu as an insurance policy for Khalil Mack. Um, like, I think best case scenario, neither of them have to play too tough because the older guys stay healthy. But as with players in their 30s, you're always concerned about injuries. And like, if push comes to shove and they have to play a backup, those are probably pretty decent backups to have to play on a football field. And with how injuries impacted this team last year, to injury proof that those positions a little bit is a good thing to do next year. Obviously, you want to see Bosa healthy, you want to see Mac healthy. That's something they have to be a good defense, right? So we'll see how that goes. But obviously, I think last year they signed J.C. Jackson, and I think he missed a lot of time, right? I think
Yep.
so.
Yep.
So, but that's the thing. If you can put J.C. Jackson on the field with Asante Samuel, with Derwin James, with that pass rush, like, the important components of a defense are in place. Like, obviously, as with a lot of defenses, they are relying on like basically role players. So like some of these guys in the secondary and some of these guys in the middle of the defensive line are just regular guys. But like It's fine to have a regular guy if you have superstars in different places on your defense, and they do. But they just need those superstars to stay healthy. They need them to play well. And then, yeah, like they need the coach to do his job. Obviously, he's a Staley's is a coach that's been heavily criticized in that playoff game. I think has had a lot of people calling for him to no longer be on the team. So we're gonna see. You got a coach with his back against the wall. I think he knows if he doesn't overperform this year, he's probably gone. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, the positive of him coming back is that they're in the same defense. So a lot of these guys who know this defense like the back of their hand, they're going to be the guys playing next year. So you want to see them stay healthy. You want to see them get the opportunity to play as a whole unit. And the thing is like, we're talking about offenses and defense as two separate things, but like they do obviously play off of each other. And as for what this offense is supposed to do, this defense has room for error. And
Yeah,
with the kind of like, they're a team that if they just generate a certain amount of sacks and turnovers, they can even like have offenses move up and down the field, and they're fine with how their offense should move up and down the field, right? Like they don't have to play perfect football, and they're more than equipped to play just like good football, right? They don't have to be great, they don't have to be elite. If they're just good, they should be able to win games with their offense. So yeah, I think they're in a good spot. Trying to see if there's anything that I missed. But yeah, no, like I think I got everything I have to say off my chest. They have some good pieces. I look forward to what they do.
yeah. Um, Bro, I love Brandon Staley. I thought I was very pissed when he left our building to go to the
Yeah,
Rams, and he built
yeah,
a great defense there under McVay.
yeah,
And then now he's come to, you know, the Chargers. I think he's built a really good defense again. What his defense is basically Vic Fangio's defense, right?
yeah,
So what it is I'm speaking from experience because like the Bears ran it
yeah.
2018. We almost went to the Super Bowl. We could have gone, but yeah, Cody Parkey happened. But that defense was still one of the best I haven't seen a better defense since,
Yeah,
like in the NFL. And what this kind of defense relies on, it's like a bend don't break type of defense.
yep, yep,
It's not gonna like completely shut you down. It's gonna rely heavily on turnovers and sacks, and
yep,
that's the biggest thing. Like even that Bears defense led the league in turnovers. That Rams defense led the league in turnovers and sacks.
yep,
So and they have the potential for that with the likes of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Like that pass rush, they're just gonna tee off on quarterbacks, and that
yeah,
secondary is good enough to like hold them off for them to get home, and they're gonna give the secondary a lot of opportunities with like
yeah,
batted down balls, like quarterbacks getting hit while they're thrown, like
yeah,
a lot of pressure situations, and it also relies on a safety with like really good instincts and that can cover the field really well. Like
yeah,
one of the strong safety really goes like heavily in run support and tries to help out with running backs, tight ends, and it just relies on a free safety, just back there that's going to cover sideline,
basically playing like center field.
basically playing center field. That's what Eddie Jackson did and how he
Yeah,
blew up, and
yeah, yeah.
that's how the Rams were really good. So I don't know who that's going to be in this because
Right now it says Alohi Gilman, 6th round pick from 2020. So if he
yeah,
hasn't made a name yet in his 3 years in the NFL, probably just average, which like it could be the
yeah,
case because I'll be real. Safety is a position where a lot of the times when you watch football, you'll see just like a random guy back there, but the defense is playing well. You have no idea who that safety is or even if he's any good. But like safeties are sometimes players that just like blend in. So maybe he's good, but again, like Derwin is the guy we know is certified, and we have to hope that Alohi
yeah.
Gilman is good. They probably had somebody else last year. I feel like they lost somebody in free agency.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think like that's what the thing is. Like this defense tricks the quarterbacks into thinking like you have a deep route, you have
Yeah,
something,
yeah, yeah.
but like if the safety is right there playing center field, he's gonna get that interception every single time. That's why
Yeah.
Eddie Jackson, like I remember there was a month of like October, November, he had
Yeah.
more touchdowns than like Cooper Kupp,
Oh
Austin
yeah,
Eckler.
yeah.
Funny
I
enough,
remember
like
that.
he just went
Yeah.
crazy, right? And he had the most interceptions that season. Like that's what it is. So
Does
that's what this.
Davey blitz much?
No, he just
Yeah. Real
pass rushes
Fangio
with
shit.
four.
Real
Yep,
Fangio shit.
yep, just pass rushes with four. But sometimes what he can do is like, like if a teams bring out another wide receiver,
Yeah.
he like you go to a nickel, right?
Yeah.
You drop one of the D ends or a
Defense.
nose
Yeah.
tackle, and
Yeah.
you go with four. But it was really interesting because I still remember it. It was the Rams game, Sunday Night Football. He like loaded the box. There was
Yeah.
still five, even though there was multiple receivers. There were
Yeah.
still five pass rushers.
Yeah.
So that's something that this defense does. Like
Okay.
sometimes, like they'll game plan in a sense, like where if the running game is really strong and they can't get enough pass rush, they're
Hmm.
just they're gonna load the box. Doesn't matter if you have 3, 4 wide receivers. Like they're sending five pass rushers, but more often than not, it is 4 pass rushers, and it's
Yeah.
a bend don't break. They won't stop you from getting a couple yards, 2, 3 yards, 4 yards, five
Yeah.
yards, but they're gonna get you to fourth down. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So I know what you mean. So the thing with the Fangio defense is like the Fangio defense is the trendy defense in football right now. A lot of
100%.
defensive coordinators are from his tree, and then there's others that aren't that effectively run his scheme. So like Jonathan Gannon runs Fangio football. Obviously, Fangio was like with the Eagles last year in some weird capacity, and then Desai this year is gonna run a lot of the same schemes. And there's a bunch of people in the NFL that run that scheme, and like it's the trendy defense for a reason, right? Like bend don't break makes sense in the era of football where like offenses are popping off because it's like even in theory, like let's say you give up a field goal every single possession, right? And there's 8 possessions in the game, so you gave up 24 points. You still probably win those football games nowadays with a good offense, right? So it's like the goal is just to no big plays at all. You can come up the field 14, 15 plays, but then once you get inside the 10 and the field is smaller, you're not scoring a touchdown. And I remember actually when the Eagles played the Steelers, Kenny Pickett after the game was talking about the fact that like they couldn't get any big plays on the Eagles defense and like they had to go down the field in like these long drives. And he said he's like it's really hard to it's really hard to string together a 14 15 play drive because like you basically have to like have 14 15 plays in a row where you more or less don't make mistakes, right?
Yep.
So it's like that's just a difficult thing to do as a numbers game. Like as sometimes you just fuck up and it just happens, right? So
100%.
that's the thing where like that's what makes it's a smart way to play football. My only thing with this kind of football that I think is it triggers me differently, mainly because of Gannon's way of running the Fangio schemes, but like it's ultimately very reactive football in that like the defense is going to do what they do. They're not really adjusting to the offense too much, but like they have their stuff that they're trying to do on the field, and it's like we're just going to work on doing what we do better as opposed to like reacting to the offense, which is fine. But like when once an offense figures out what they need to do against these kind of defenses, it can get ugly pretty quick, just like the Jaguars against the Chargers last year. And then to be real, just like the Chiefs against the Eagles in the Super Bowl, like these kind of like all of a sudden, like the defense looks great, then all of a sudden the offense figures out what they need to do against it, and again you're reacting, you're sitting back and like you're just like letting the offense do their thing. You're not dictating anything. You're not really adjusting. You're just doing your thing. It's frustrating for me sometimes. So like in this case particularly, right? This is an AFC team in the same division as the Chiefs, right? Andy Reid, a guy who I think figured out how to play Gannon's version of this defense at some point, right? They are the team that played against the Jaguars when the Jaguars eventually figured out what to do against this defense. Like my only thing is like I think Fangio ultimately like he's the godfather, right? So
Yep.
his defense, like he's the person who understands it the best. The thing with Staley is like Staley might be in a good spot because he worked under Fangio. Sean Desai also worked under Fangio.
Yep.
Jonathan Gannon didn't. right? So I think that's part of the reason why like he's learning a scheme and implementing it from afar, right? Um, yeah, so that's much my thing with Staley. Like, it's interesting to see how this works for them next season because, like, I'll be real, they have the personnel to just like if they should have like a change up pitch to their defense, right? Like, yeah, we
Yep.
have our main Fangio stuff, but also like screw it, we'll blitz 6 guys against you on a play just to do it, right? Because sometimes that's necessary. So we'll see. That's why I wanted to ask about him blitzing because, like I said, this team is going to play the Chiefs twice, and very realistically, the Jaguars probably a lot going
100%.
forward. And Doug Peterson and Andy Reid, I think, are two coaches that are just like real men of football. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
there's anything that they won't be able to figure out. So we'll see
Facts.
what
Facts.
happens. Obviously, a lot of hope for this team, a lot of talent. They got
One
some
thing
older.
though,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, it definitely does like have the quarterback. The quarterback needs a lot of patience to run this to against this defense
To work, yeah,
because like it like you had to just think and dunk, think and dunk, think and dunk, and then a lot of quarterbacks get impatient and crazy turnovers happen like that. And the other thing is with your point about Gannon and versus Staley and Desai,
yeah,
what happened is like why they're two, I think, successful people that run the Fangio defense and uh have been previously and are gonna be in the future. So what this Fangio used to do when he was the defensive coordinator for us,
yeah,
he used to sit in the box upstairs.
yeah,
Like he used to
yeah.
he wasn't on the field. And
Okay.
so the interesting thing was that he had two people in there with him, and
Yeah.
they were Brandon Staley and Sean Desai.
Oh, interesting.
They had like learned off him, like
Yeah, yeah,
for in isolation, 16 games a season.
yeah.
So that's like really interesting. Like I
Yo,
thought,
random side note. Did you know Sean Desai is Indian?
yeah, he is.
I had no idea. That was hella
Yeah,
random. But
yeah,
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 go ahead, continue.
yeah. No, that's what I was gonna say. Is like those two have like been with him. So to your point, like the Gannon didn't execute it perfectly. I think these guys
Yeah.
will do it really nice
It's a
with that.
different level. It's a
Yeah,
different
yeah,
level.
100%.
And that's the thing too, is like with like, let's say Gannon, Staley and Desai, right? Like Staley might be like a god level defensive coordinator and just not a good head coach because they're just different jobs, right? Like it's one of those things where um ultimately his role on this team isn't just defensive coordinator. He's a whole ass head coach. Um and the pressure's on him to be a head coach because like you can't be getting out coached by other teams badly and do well, right? So we're gonna see a lot of people think he got coached circles around by Doug Peterson in that wild card game. We'll see what happens going forward. I do think ultimately though, like I said, if he doesn't overperform, he's probably gone because I think the Chargers are probably going to want to get in a hurry. They don't pay people like they pay Herbert usually, so I'm sure the pressure is going to be on. We good to go to the Chiefs?
Let's go.
All right. So the Chiefs, who, to be honest, like weird team to talk about because I feel like most of what there is to say is probably stuff that gets talked about every year, right? So it's like I'm just gonna skip past all the like Andy Reid's great, Mahomes is great, Kelsey's great, like all the stuff we already know. Like
Yep.
self-explanatory, does need to be spoken about. Um, this receiving core is really thrown together, very thrown together. But like
Yeah.
to be honest, that's kind of how Andy Reid likes it. So
Yep.
speaking from the experience of basically watching him closely my whole life, because even like I grew up with Andy Reid being the Eagles coach, and then when he left, like I still kind of followed the Chiefs because like that's still my guy, right, bro? So he had but just a receiving core with random guys prior to Terrell Owens. Got Terrell Owens, shit went left in a year. After Terrell Owens, just had random guys until it was like, oh shit, this isn't working. I need to go get a guy. So then he got Deshaun Jackson, and obviously he wasn't around for the rest, right? And then in Kansas City, right, for a while he had just random guys, and then I think he got Sammy Watkins, and then he got Tyreek Hill. But it's like he goes in cycles in terms of like he gets a great receiver, and then he starts feeling himself. He's like, I don't need a great receiver. So then he just gets random guys, and then at some point he pays for it, and then he's like, you know what, I have to go get a serious receiver. So he's just at this point in the cycle. Um, I, like obviously the big caveat here is he has Travis Kelsey, so like that kind of enables the bullshit a little bit. But bro, this is such a random receiving core. Um, like why is MVS there? I don't
Right.
get the purpose of paying that guy 10 million a year. Like, not to say he's like trash or anything, but like you could definitely spend 10 million a year better. I like Kadarius Toney a lot, but like we'll see if he stays healthy. He's a very dangerous athlete, and like
Yep.
obviously the whole thing is like find a way to get the ball in his hands. Give him a handoff, give him a screen, give him an end around, give him a touch pass, give him just anything, right? Get the ball in his hands. Dynamic athlete. Sky Moore is cool. Rashi Rice, I honestly like I don't know that much about. I don't know that he caught my eye in the draft process, but I just don't know that much about the guy. Richie James is just like an athletic guy. Justin Ross, obviously, I think he's looked good. Apparently, like I liked him a lot in college, but he had a terrible neck issue. Like that receiving core, right? Whatever your opinion is about them, like it probably doesn't matter. And like that's my overarching point about this receiving core. Like you could say it's shit, you could say it's average, you could say it's mid, you could say it's slept on, and there's actually ballers here, but like it doesn't matter because like they have Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. So like my commentary on the receivers aren't like it's not even actually that meaningful or important either. The thing about this team that I think actually is significant is the offensive tackles. Because my goodness, I think they got a shit guy at left tackle with Donovan Smith.
Yeah.
Bro, like this guy is a cap casualty. So you see that beside his name, CC Tampa Bay. That means he was a cap casualty. He didn't get cut. Uh, he didn't get like he didn't. His contract didn't run out. He got cut by Tampa. He got cut outright, right? Jawan Taylor is good. Like he's fine, but they paid him like 20 million a year. I think they invested in offensive tackle horribly, right? And while I think they can overcome nonsense at the receiver position, I actually don't think they can overcome nonsense at offensive tackle. I think that's way too important of a position. And I think Andy Reid had a quote once, right? And maybe he was just talking out of his ass, but he did say he was like, if you want to give me the ability to start a football team and you're going to give me 5 players, I'm going to take the quarterback, 2 offensive tackles, and 2 pass rushers. Like that's what he said. So then to see him invest so poorly in the offensive tackles to me is really surprising. But like, again, I've seen this a lot. Like Andy Reid sometimes just starts feeling himself and the ego takes over and he thinks he can turn mediocre players into great players just because he
Yep.
has at certain times in his career. I think the inside of the line is phenomenal. I think the center and the guards are great. I
Great.
think the offensive tackles might be a little bit ass. Like Jawan Taylor might just be like he might just be good and they're paying him to be elite, and that left
Yes.
tackle might be actually just shit. So we'll see what happens. They obviously they drafted a tackle in the 3rd round. It wouldn't be surprising to see like him at like I don't know that he's actually that good, but like if he turns out to be like a Creed Humphrey for them or even a Trey Smith, like a draft pick that they just got perfectly right, and he's a great left tackle, like that would probably make me think, okay, like that Donovan Smith thing, like almost like I don't know, it's almost like he's trolling us at this point. Like, yeah, I'm gonna sign this shit guy because like it doesn't matter anyways. I just need a vet just in case, kind of
Yeah.
a thing. But like that's the thing of like that's where I think the issue might be with this offense, but their running back room, I think, is it's good enough for what he wants to do. Like Jerick McKinnon is like his receiving back that he
Yep.
always likes, like his Brian Westbrook. There's been some other guys, but like that kind of a running back, he's got that guy with McKinnon. He's got the between the tackles runner and Pacheco. Um, Everything offensively that they did last year, and for what it's worth, right? I don't actually think they were like out of this world offensively last year. The thing is like they don't need to be because like against the Jaguars, right? What did they do? They scored like 20 points, I think. 23. They scored
Yeah.
something like that. They scored in the 20s, right? Against the Bengals, they scored 23 points. Against the Eagles, they scored 35, but the Eagles offense and special teams handed the Chiefs 14 points, right? Like they scored 21 points on like merit. The defensive touchdown and the Kadarius Toney punt return to the six, that's two of the teams. Oh, 38. That's two of the 38, 14 of the 38 points were just handed to them by other units, right? Like this was a team that actually just so happened to score like in the 20s a lot. This isn't like a traditional Chiefs offense when they had Tyreek Hill, when they're just like, yo, you might catch 40 on any given game. They weren't that last year. I don't think they did anything to become that this year, but it kind of doesn't matter because they're just going to outsmart you and they'll just find a way to win the football game, right? Their defense last year was very complementary to their offense because it was like a flash play defense. It was a sack and turnover defense. Yeah, they can get moved on, but they're also just going to make a play. And it's kind of like, you know how if you go against the Warriors, right? Like the old Warriors where it's like Curry and KD, it's like if they get you with like a 9-0 run with three big threes, it's just a 9-0 run, but it feels like you just got shot in the head, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. I
with the
know what you
Chiefs,
mean.
right? If
I know
they
what
get
you
a
mean.
turnover on you and then Mahomes does some crazy shit and gets a touchdown, the momentum swing that comes with how they play, it hits so much harder than just like what happened, right? So that's the
Yep.
thing. I actually like, I don't think this team's like super special, but the point is like their coach and their quarterback is, so it just doesn't matter that they're not special. It doesn't. Like they're going to
Yep.
be a very good team, right? There's going to be times in the season where people are probably going to be like, look, Cincinnati's better or Miami's better or the Jets are better. Or like it'll happen. It's guaranteed. At some point in the season, other teams will look better than them. But then at the end of the year, they're going to have a very good record. They're going to be very scary in the playoffs. And like, yeah, they might go to the Super Bowl again. So yeah, that's my thing with
Yeah.
this team as a whole. And that's my thing about the offense. I'll let you get into it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I echo the same things about the offensive line. Um, the inside is the interior is crazy. It's crazy good. Trey
Yeah.
Smith, Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney, like insane. I think Jawan Taylor is good. I don't think he's great, but yeah,
Yeah.
Donovan Smith is ass. He's cheeks.
Yep.
So you've pretty much touched on everything. Like running backs, again, they do a running back by committee. I was surprised how good Pacheco was, and I think he can only get better. He's
Yeah.
a crazy athlete, like crazy, crazy athlete. So let's see what he can do again in year two. Sky Moore was underwhelming for me. I expected more out of him,
Yeah.
and but I really like Kadarius Toney. I think he's a really, really good wide receiver. It's just the injury issues. Like
Yeah.
he's a playmaker, like a true playmaker. Get the ball in his
Yeah.
hands and get the hell out the way. And
Yeah.
Rashi Rice, he's interesting because he's someone they don't have in the wide receivers.
He's a big physical receiver, right?
Exactly, like he's like a big body receiver. Like anywhere you throw it around him, he's gonna bring the ball down. So that's
Yeah.
his like elite trait. Other than that, he doesn't have great speed. He ran a 4.5. So his main thing is he's like just a big body receiver. Throw the ball up to him, he's gonna come down with it. So, but the
Yeah.
Chiefs really missed with picks, and especially in the recent history, like they draft really well. So I'm not
The
gonna
draft
go.
class last year was a home run. That's why I look at Wayne Morris and I was like, bro, I would not be surprised if he steps in and he's like a very good left tackle.
Yep, yep, yep. Facts. Yeah, same. Echo the same shit.
Yeah.
Let's go on to that defense, bro.
All right, let's get into this defense. So, like again, like you look at this defense, right, and like look at these draft pick names all over here. So I'll put them out here, right? 22, 20, 20, 21, 22, 22, 20, 22. You got all the green are rookies this year, so very young defense, but like their defense that got the job done last year. Um, if you assume that they have a similarly like forget having as good of a draft class because it's probably impossible, but even if they just have a decent draft class, that's a lot of young talent to have. um my couple of points that I'll say about this defense, like I like the secondary quite a bit, to be honest. Like good young players, probably only going to get better. I love Justin Reed. I really wanted the Eagles to draft him in the draft. Their linebackers are phenomenal, and like not only are they phenomenal, but they're both like athletic and physical.
Mm,
Like they smack the shit out of people. They fly around the ball. Both of them,
yep.
I think, have similar stories of like they probably weren't looked at as elite prospects because they're a little bit undersized. And then Willie Gay had some off the field stuff, but like both very good players. And then a part of the reason you get away with undersized linebackers are you're basically the interior of your defensive line does a good job of keeping them clean. So the big thing there is like everything kind of points to Chris Jones, right? Chris Jones, I think, is
Yep.
such a slept on defensive tackle. What I felt like so early in Aaron Donald's career, I used to feel like, it sucks for Fletcher Cox that he plays in Aaron Donald's era because like Fletcher Cox is so in his prime was so good, but like people don't really give a fuck because Aaron Donald is just like god level defensive tackle, just like greatest of all time, right? Chris
Yep.
Jones is to me like occupies the same space in a different time period. Like Chris Jones is so good. He's so good. It just doesn't matter because Aaron Donald's Aaron Donald, but he's so good. If they don't have him for one reason or another, like the ripple effect is so big, and like that might be like a legitimate problem. There's no like, oh, we hit on all these draft picks that can make up for Chris Jones not playing football.
Yep.
And Steve Spagnuolo is a defensive coordinator that's won like 3 to 4 Super Bowls now. He's obviously like amazing at his job and he's amazing at what he does, but there's no way to make up for that. So they're in a difficult position because I heard Michael Lombardi um, actually put a pretty good takeout on the situation. Like Chris Jones probably is looking to get paid like his full value, which is very, very high. But like basically Mahomes and Kelsey are both taking pretty big pay cuts, right? So it's like they're probably in a tough spot where like they don't want to set a precedent of like, we'll have those players taking such big pay cuts and then like we'll pay people like market setting contracts. That's probably like how they're looking at it, which I don't think is fair because the other side of it is like, well, what did you pay Jawan Taylor, right? Like there's some
Yep.
guys on this team that are going to have to get overpaid because of the underpayments that you're paying. But like, man, Chris Jones is somebody you got to give the bag to. You have to give him that
You
money.
have to.
You have to. That is like there's no two ways about it. He's in such a strong position of leverage, and I think that's ultimately why this is happening the way it is. Because him and his agent, like, they must have their fingers on the pulse. They know that like this is a Super Bowl impacting contract decision for the Chiefs, right? I don't think they like it's a tough thing to say, and a part of me wants to not say it, but like I don't actually think they can win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones.
Oh yeah.
Um, so like they need to sign the guy. But yeah, we'll see what happens. That's just what it is for me. Like this defense will be again very opportunistically good next year if they have Chris Jones, but like there's a chance that they're just good next year without him. Like just good,
Yeah.
not very good, not elite, not game changing, just good.
That I 100%, bro. He's like a Hall of Fame game wrecker. Like
Yep.
he just messes everything up for the offense. Like he is.
Yeah.
People really bank on like outside pass rushers, like these edge rushers a lot, but the
Yeah.
quickest path to the quarterback is
Yeah.
through the middle, right? So if you
Yeah.
can get pressure up the middle, that's where it, like messes up the quarterback's rhythm
Yep.
the most. And
That's why they're so valuable.
exactly. So he's arguably one of the best like three techs of all time. Like he's definitely the best in the league right now. Donald
Yeah.
hasn't been at it for the past year, so
Yeah.
he is he's not a replaceable piece. Like no matter what you do, you cannot find another Chris Jones. That big, that like fast, that tall, that athletic, that like technical, So I think yeah, they have a good defense around him, but it's so like catered to him. Like they've almost built the defense around him, which they
Yeah.
should, and it's
Yeah.
been working. So I think their secondary is good as well. They have a lot of good pieces there, but it's just again, if they don't have Chris Jones, they're not going to be anything special. Like they're not going to be able to handle the high powered offenses in the AFC without him.
Yeah.
Like definitely not.
Yeah. Like they needed their defense to keep Cincy to 20, right? Like they needed we're gonna give up like at at least 17, but they needed to keep it to 20, right? Like they needed to keep Jacksonville to what I think they kept them to like they gave up a touchdown in the end, but they did a good job against Jacksonville. And like it's a funny thing to say, but they needed their defense to make plays in the second half against the Super Bowl. Like they got smacked in the first half. They needed plays in the second half. Like they need their defense to make plays. Their defense doesn't have to shut people down, but like I don't think that they can make plays the same without Chris Jones or even close.
Yeah, 100%, bro. And I pray and hope they don't get him. Like they don't get him back and they trade him because one of the trade partners is us, bro. If we could get him, oh my god.
Bro, send him to Chicago. Send him to Chicago.
He already has the Ryan Poles link, so we can.
Big facts. You guys have the cap space. You guys have the draft capital.
We need a game wrecking 3 technique. Like we drafted 2-3 techniques in the draft, and who better for them to learn off of than Chris freaking Jones?
Yo, but also like that would be such a good compliment to Driven Dexter.
Oh, it would. Oh god, bro.
Because think about it, right? You could put Chris Jones and Driven Dexter in like a nickel defense as the 2 interiors. Because like whatever, like Chris Jones will pass rush for the both of them.
Bro,
and you're not gonna run against that nickel defense, but like not. Yeah, that'd be cold. That'd be cold.
Oh man, but yeah, that's just me, man. Like let's just see what they could do. They'll if they get Jones back, yeah, they'll be back in the Super Bowl again, no doubt about it.
That's true. We good on the Chiefs?
Let's go. Yep.
All right, man. We got the Raiders. Last but not least, funny organization, man. Raiders. Bro, I'll be real. This is an elite level clown show. Like, I don't. Why did you see this team and say, you know what, Jacoby Myers, Jimmy Garoppolo? I'm bringing all my mans from New England through. You know, everybody. Like, look at the amount of random Patriots, right? So you got this guy from New England. This guy's from New England. This guy's from New England. This guy's from New England. Where the tight ends? No tight ends. I don't know. This guy traded from New England. This guy's from New England. Like, this is really weird. It's just really weird how, and it's not like they're getting elite talent from New England. Like McDaniels is just getting all these scrubs to probably show up and like support his Patriot way bullshit. That's going to result in like a cool 8 wins, right? Like, top best case scenario. But yo, it's just like I don't know what to say about this offense. Like Jimmy Garoppolo is the thing is like I think at his best he was mid. I think he's regressed, right? Like he's picked up a lot of injuries. I don't think he's gonna be this like the same, and that's usually what you say about good players, but I'm saying this about a mediocre player. He signed with a terrible, like a messed up ankle. Hopefully that's okay. But then if he's not okay, Brian Hoyer, I just don't think should be on. He's a coach at this point, right? Yeah. Now that pivots to Aiden O'Connell, who's like, honestly, like even if you see the upside there, probably shouldn't play as a rookie. Like I don't know what the point is of how they've gone about things. And it's so sad because Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, I think, are so good at football. Like, they're some of the better football players that you could put on a football field. And they're just wasting their time in Las Vegas. Those 2 players will keep your offense just good enough. But then everything else about this offense will stop it from being actually a meaningful offense that could do anything in the AFC. And then that's the bigger context here is like they're not in the NFC, they're in the AFC where like the standard is much higher. So like what are you going to do with Hunter Renfrow and Jacoby Myers as your supporting cast? Why are you playing Austin Hooper in 2023? And like I don't know a lot of these offensive linemen offhand, but I don't think their offensive line was anything special last year. I just think this offense is going to be mediocre. It's going to be annoying to watch. I think Garoppolo, again, like he's at a point where I think in San Fran, he was able to run an offense. He might be at a point this year where he's in the way of the offense running. So this could be a pretty unbearable year to be a part of in this organization. I think they're paying Gruden a lot of money, so I don't know if they want to fire another coach, but they might be in a position where they have to at some point. What do you think about the offense?
Yeah, just the same, man. They're just it's a clown show. I don't know why they went with Jimmy G, like paid him all that money. It just makes no sense. Like their their roster on paper looks like they're in win now mode, but
Yeah,
they're definitely not. I'll
yeah,
tell you that for free. Um, yeah, they're an interesting team because I think they were one of the teams that tried to trade up for the number one pick in the offseason to try and
yeah,
get a quarterback. So that definitely shows that they're not really too keen on what's his face Garoppolo for the long run. And yeah, they have like some really good pieces. Like Devontae Adams, still one of the best receivers in the league. I think Trey Tucker is a guy who's really slept on. He was at Cincinnati last year, and he didn't have a great quarterback. Like he made a decent name for himself when Ritter was there because Ritter was really good in
yeah, yeah.
college. But then after that, didn't he? It wasn't a really good quarterback, so he kind of struggled there. I think he could have been better. Um,
5'9", 185. So is he like a deep threat or like a slot receiver?
bit of both, like a bit
Okay,
of
that's dope. That's
yeah.
dope.
So yeah, he is a good piece. So they obviously got Michael Mayer, who's like really good tight end. He would have won in the first round, but there was such an influx of tight ends, such a great
Yeah,
tight end class
yeah.
this year, and I think he's a really good piece. So yeah, man, interesting to see what they do, but you're not getting anywhere with Jimmy G. Josh Jacobs is obviously elite, like arguably the best running back in the NFL,
Yeah.
and they have a good running game, but like that's only going to get you so far with a
Yep.
mediocre quarterback.
Ah, that's what it is with that offense. Like it just there's only so much you can say. I'll just get us to the defense at this point where again it's like it's another strange approach to the team. I think signing Marcus Peters, like I don't know, maybe he wants to play for the Raiders because he like grew up a Raiders fan or something, but like I don't know how good he's gonna be in this defense this year. I think Baltimore was maybe better suited for him because they have pieces around him. But like, why is he playing on this defense? Why did they sign Marcus Epps? Like, if you're gonna spend money in this situation, why would you spend it on mid? And that's me saying that because like he got paid 6 million a year. Um, he's nothing special. He's solid, he's steady, but he's nothing special. Like, do you think that you need role players, or do you think you're at that point in your building your defense? They're apparently starting this fourth round pick, Jacorian Bennett, at corner. Like Marcus Peters and a fourth round pick rookie starting at corner with Nate Hobbs is a suspect corner situation. So it's like, why are you spending money on a safety that's just supposed to come in and like just play a role, right? Like that's a strange usage of money. Their linebacking room, like Spillane is bang average at best. Divine Diablo's cool, like I like him, but so their pass rushers, right? Obviously, they have Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, but like I heard Chandler Jones was bad last year. Like I heard that he looked
Yeah, he
washed.
was.
I'm assuming that that's Tyree Wilson's spot, but like with Tyree Wilson, you hope the health stuff checks out. Jerry Tillery was waived in the middle of the year last year by a contender, which that should tell you enough about the situation there. And like as we talked about with the Chargers, like at the very minimum, Staley is a very good defensive coach. So if he's waiving you in the middle of the year while he's coaching a playoff team, it's probably a bad sign for who you are. Bilal Nichols was on the Bears last year, right?
No, like two,
It was a
3 years.
couple. It was 2 3 years ago. Okay, okay. Like he's just like mediocre, right?
Yeah, he's like good. His ceiling's like good. He's not
Okay.
anything special.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's the thing. They have so many of those football players, and like they add more of those football players. So it's just I don't know. I don't even know who the defensive coordinator is.
Who is it actually?
We're gonna find out because it's like it's Patrick Graham. Oh, this guy was I think a Giants defensive coordinator, but I think they were asked while he was the Giants defensive coordinator. Okay, he was a part of a Super Bowl winning thing. Hold up, let me see his Wikipedia Because yeah, I don't think that this guy.
Let's see.
Yeah, defensive coordinator for the Giants for 1 year, defensive coordinator for the Dolphins that year, run game coordinator, defensive line coach. Then see, this is the Patriots connection. 6 years
Oh
in the
my
Patriots, or
god.
bro, that's what I'm saying. They just hire Patriots mid. That's just what they do. So that's just like that's what this team is, man. Like I purposely don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this team because it pisses me off. Another random thing that pisses me off about this team, they have elite special teamers. Yo, it's something about the Raiders, right? They always want to put a shitty product out there with elite
Yeah,
special teams. We're gonna have a phenomenal punter and a phenomenal kicker and nothing else that's good.
it's oh my god, bro. It's so weird. They're such a weird team.
But
Like why though? It's whatever, man.
that's what it is, man. Like again, I don't expect good things from this team. Good things aren't gonna happen. Their avenues for good things aren't there. Like again, Max Crosby, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, free yourselves. Free yourselves because you're all such good players. You deserve to be on teams that are equally good. But you have to deal with this bullshit.
Facts.
So
I got nothing
that's
more
what
to say on that.
let's get rid of this team. But all right, so I'll throw my prediction in the chat. So we'll go with Chiefs 1, Chargers 2. Actually, Raiders will be 3. Raiders will be 3. I got the Raiders 3.
Ooh.
Broncos 4. Yeah, my thing there is just like I got things going bad for the Broncos offensively, like not average but bad. So like, yeah, that's it. Things have to trend towards destruction there, so that's where I'm at. But like maybe that's a bit of a edgy thing, suggesting the Raiders won't be just completely ass. But to be honest, I just think the Raiders actually have more elite talent.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So that's what it is.
The thing is, though, with them, I actually got them flipped. I got the Raiders 4th, the Broncos 3rd. So
Yeah.
they do have elite talent, but elite talent like doesn't matter when you're not getting coached. And like
True.
they have a terrible coach. Like we've seen this with like New England. We discussed this actually before. Like they're what's his face's coaching tree, Belichick, isn't the greatest. Like
Cheeks. Yeah.
it's horrible, and he's not good. And I think the Broncos, they might be bad, but still Sean Payton. I expect him to finish above this Raiders team with Jimmy Garoppolo as their quarterback. So, and it's a clown show.
No, I hear you. I hear you. No, like that stuff makes sense. But we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see for sure.
Both organizations, I think, are in need of a lot of change. But that's the end of the divisional preview, people. We are gonna pivot to a watch along. So I dropped the YouTube link, the link in the chat, people. It's obviously on this channel, so it's like you don't have to go far. If you're lazy enough to need the link, it's there. But we're heading off to that stream right now. It'll happen on a different stream. But yeah, watch along for UNC versus South Carolina. It's Drake May against Spencer Rattler. Who knows? There might be 2 quarterbacks that are on the Raiders and the Broncos next year. You never know. So we're gonna get right to that. Future of the NFL watch, people. We're gonna get on that. Tap in with us. Join us.